It's a FunnerWord Daily. Adam Collins and Jeff Lemon. It's day 3 of the Australia-Pakistan Test match for cbussuper.com.au. Good luck summing that up in 30 seconds.
Oh, Test cricket's boring and nobody likes it. It was just Smith and Labuschagne nudging it around. Smith plays a horrible shot to cover. Labuschagne gets bowled by a beauty through the gate. And then second session, it's Carey, it's Marsh. Australia are only 20 behind. They're going along nicely. Carey gets bowled just before the break. Marsh hits one to mid-off. They lose 5 for 10 Australia. Jamal 6 for 67, second sixer of the tour. Pakistan on top, they lead by 14, then they lose 2 wickets without scoring a run, and then there's a partnership between Saim Ayub and Babar Azam. They put on 58 together, they're looking okay, and then crash, bang, wallop. Travis Head picks up a wicket, Nathan Lyon gets one, and Josh Hazlewood takes 3 in and over. It's 7 for 68 at stumps. Pakistan lead by 82 runs.
That's it.
And yeah, it could be over by lunch on day 4.
May well be the lesser spotted triple wicket maiden to end a dramatic final session. 11 for 78 in 29.4 overs. It started with a run. I've wrote all this down at the time. It was 5 for 10 from 21 balls.
Yep.
Including 4 in 7 balls for Amir Jamal after tea himself, where he went through Marsh, Cummins, Lyon and Hazlewood. Marsh a half century, 54. And they were all out for 299. So a lead of 14 for Pakistan, and you're thinking, well, this is their best chance to win a test match in Australia since they won here in 1995, by some margin. Their best chance. Since then, I think they've lost 4 matches by an innings, 4 others by 9 wickets or worse, and they tend to get pumped. That 16 test run has been, you know, last week was an exception to the rule, being close deep into the 4th innings. Normally they're getting hammered. This time they're ahead. They're ahead at the halfway mark, and then Mitchell Starc bowls a ball to Abdullah Shafiq to complete his pair, which is one of the best balls he's bowled in his career. Back through the gate, the way it broke back was absolutely superb. I can really think of a player getting a better ball when on a pair. Josh Hazlewood nicks off Shah Massoud to his first ball. Hazlewood second, as it was in the first innings. A soft dismissal, a soft shot from Shah Massoud. He'll be gutted with that. And then there was that partnership, and Jeff, at that point, with Saim Ayub batting in that youthful, not carefree, but youthful manner, that counter-attacking way, along with Babar Azam, who, by hook or by crook, was trying to get himself back into some kind of nick. It felt like they were going to get to the close, maybe 2 or at worst 3 down, and we have a real contest tomorrow. Then the dramatic finish. Lyon with the leg before round the wicket, Saim beating him with flight. Travis Head drawing a poor shot from Babar Azam, drifting away well outside the off stump, driving away from his body. And then Hazlewood going bang, 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 Saud Shakil out of form. The night watchman, poor old Sajid, losing his middle stump, and then Salman, who wouldn't have expected to be batting that quickly, would have been dramatic putting his pads on, knowing there was a night watchman there, edging to slip, and you know, it's 3 wickets falling on 67, and like in all of that, after all the great work from Amal Jamir, who was on the cusp of having Amir Jamal even on the cusp of having one of the great test performances, you know, Imran Khan-esque here in 1977, it all falls away as quickly as it was back on the table. Well,
Jamal's ashes was what Bharat Sundaresan was saying to me as he was sitting there watching Amir Jamal pick up that 6th wicket. I mean, 2 sixers on an away tour to Australia.
18 wickets at 19 through the series.
Not something a lot of people are looking at. Our colleague John O'Barrack looked back at me at one point and said, "Has anybody won Player of the Series in a series where they've been whitewashed?" A great question, and I don't think it's happened. You've had Player of the Series winners in a losing effort, but not when you haven't won a test.
The best I can give him is that Bruce Yardley was Player of the Match in a test match that Australia lost by an innings to Pakistan back in 1979. That's as good as I can give you. It might have been 81, one or the other. But the point is that, yeah, you're right. You can make a case that he's by far been Pakistan's Player of the Series. He's leading the wickets in the series comfortably as well. So, you know, he
set them up. He gave them this opportunity.
Gave them a chance,
and this was the thing. I mean, so you wind it back. That first session, it just looks like this will be Smith and Labuschagne plodding along for a couple of sessions, doing what they do, quietly ticking runs off that total. And it seemed like that was what was going to happen until Shah Massoud got funky, put in 3 covers. He had one just in front of point, one a little more conventional, and one straighter, but they were all close. They were all surrounding Smith and getting in his way. And I don't know what went through his head. A lot of things do, but he stepped way outside the off stump, plays this clobbering cover drive and hits it straight to the straightest of the 3 covers on 38. And then Labuschagne getting that beautiful ball from Agha Salman, who bowled really well today. That drifts, that turns back sharply through the gate, and he does the Labuschagne thing of just standing there staring at it for a while. Surely I can't be bowled. Why are the bails on the floor? What's happening here? I don't get out. Got out for 60, was it? And he was gone.
Well, Smith did that as well. He looked down at the surface. I'm like, man, you've just been triangulated by Pakistan here.
And geometrised.
And he did.
He's been Pythagoras.
And he did go across his stumps in order to access the onside, which suddenly had a lot of gaps in it. But someone, I don't know what part of the day it was that came up in conversation that, you know, he hadn't played a shot like that, elevated over cover today. I'm like, well, extend that to almost his whole career, because the way he holds the bat with his left hand turned around, the top hand turned around to play through the onside, it's so hard for him to elevate over cover. He rarely does it. Very rarely does it. To try and do it then,
T20 sometimes.
Yeah, but to try and do it then when they've brought in the extra catcher just for that, it strikes me as a classic brain fade. And he trudged off the field so slowly. He quickly realised the error of his ways, and it's not the first time this year, Brett. You referenced him before. He's like, well, you know, there is form here. The sweep shot at Delhi, which he never plays, and was dismissed on that ridiculous third day when they lost all 10 wickets for about 70 odd runs. The shot against Jadeja in the World Test Championship final, completely against the flow of play, which again, he said himself, he'd gotten all his horrible shots out of his system. Well, this is a part of that list, I'm afraid. And yeah, the deeper Smith gets into his career, the more we're seeing the powers of concentration penetrated. Whereas when he was younger, when he was in the real peak of his career, that was his defining characteristic, that he could concentrate for hour after hour, session after session. And look, this is probably Hall of Fame worthy, but we did see his concentration spiked when that ball of gaffer tape, was it even a ball of gaffer tape? Yeah,
it was like a bit of wadded up tape, must have been from the camera gantry above, I suspect, that had blown off onto the white sheet.
Barely perceptible, and it was behind the side screen, more or less.
How many minutes did that take?
Well, however long it did, you could, if he's noticing that, and I know Steve Smith notices everything, and look, it's to his credit that he's so thorough in his preparation, but that struck me as, if that's enough to take you out of the zone, there might be a thing going on here about how long can he bat for and still be effective. I remember towards the end of Michael Clarke's career, he made a reference to this, that it was the length of time out in the middle, as with, you know, with the broader responsibilities of captaincy for him, but with Smith, with the, you know, ongoing challenge with the back, I suppose, which must be part of it. Whether he has that type of thing in him anymore to bat all day, really.
Well, you remember in Dharamshala in 2017, he made that 111 in quick time, and it was quite counter-attacking, and it was more of a fast bowler's pitch than a spinning pitch. But he said at the time, I felt like I had about 3 hours worth of concentration left in me, and I had to score what I could before then. And so he went more aggressively than he might normally. It seems like he doesn't have, maybe he's not able to calculate the amount of concentration he's got left. It's a difficult thing to do, but yeah, that concentration went. Labuschagne, it wasn't concentration, it was just a great delivery. What do you do? You get one of those, but then Carey and Marsh are doing their thing, and Mitchell Marsh is the guy who probably will be awarded Player of the Series, makes another 50 here, counter-attacks, but he gets dropped again, and it's Saim Ayub again, the youngster who dropped the one at slip. He drops him down at mid-off when it's hit down to him. Marsh is able to keep building with Carey. Carey does that thing that he does where he makes 35 or so in quick time, almost at a runner ball, and you don't notice. Suddenly you go, oh, he's on 30. How did that happen?
And he started slowly as well. Carey looked like a bastard for the first 10 balls, then suddenly found rhythm and was hitting the ball at the middle of the bat to fielders, and that moved into picking gaps and running hard and getting twos. I think the thing with Carey is that through that barren run, so you want to, you know, there's the two periods of Carey's career, falling in the pool at Karachi till stumping Bairstow and stumping Bairstow until last week. The first period, he had a strike rate of 75, I want to say, and the second period, a strike rate of 42. So he's clearly better when he's trying to put scoreboard pressure on himself. And that, felt like more of that innings the deeper he got into it today. The right partner at Mitchell Marsh, who again, he was 6 from 40. He didn't go at anywhere near the strike rate we've seen of late, but...
Even his 50 was off 100 plus balls.
Yeah, that's it. But they did what they needed to do, remembering they came together when Australia was still in the red by near enough 100 runs. And by the time they get to just before tea, you know, they're trailing by 24. They did a pretty bloody good job of getting them to that position. Little did they know they would lose 5 for 10, and that's all Jamal, right? He bowls for so much heart. He just gives it absolutely everything.
It starts with Sajid Khan, and let's give him
the shiny-headed
wonder. Where it hasn't been his match, and he's been out-bowled by Salman Aga Salman. We get both versions depending who you're talking to, who was putting much more work on the ball. He was really revving the ball. Gavin Robertson downstairs was just watching rapt on the TV every time Salman was bowling because of the amount of effort he was putting onto the ball. But Sajid, it's almost an arm ball. He comes around the wicket, he spears it through, it really zings through, and it beats Carey on the inside edge, but bounces at a length where it's coming down by the time it clips the bail. So initially it looks like it's going down the leg side, and it looks like it's going over the top. The bounce is so high, it's on the downward part of the trajectory. It clips
the parabola.
The parabola. That's good. I like that. The spigot, the bit that sticks out of the bail, it clips the outside spigot of the leg bail. Perfection as far as accuracy goes. I don't think it was necessarily intended, but it knocks the bail off. That takes us to the break. We come back. Marsh clubs one down to mid-off, and then it was a quick run through the tail for Jamal. He gets, Lyon slaps one cut shot for 4 and then immediately edges one into the gully. We'll come back to that catch in the Hall of Fame, I'm sure.
Yes.
And then what you've got
the low
Cummins
toss
before
to Cummins,
that, but it swung.
Yeah,
so the one to Cummins that beats him because he comes across the ball and it swings and it looks like it's going down leg. It's given not out. They review that one. It's hitting the base of leg stump, and then he gets Hazlewood edging into the cordon.
I can't tell you how excited I was, and I think everyone who was here at the SCG, who doesn't have an interest in Australia, a non-parochial interest you might call it, was at the end of that innings. All out 299.
A lead. The fact Pakistan had a lead.
When was the last time?
Carrier together, you're thinking Australia were going to lead by 80 or 90 here. Yeah,
surely the last time Pakistan led Australia in a Test match after the first innings was Hobart in 1999. I can't imagine there's another time, right? And you're
Sydney
thinking
2010.
Sorry, quite right, Sydney 2010. But this is so rare. It's so rare to get to this point of a Test match where Australia haven't asserted their dominance, and then it takes no time at all. I've mentioned that ball to Shafiq, which is an absolute worldly.
Yeah.
And then the poor shot from
genuinely,
Sham.
what are you supposed to do? If you're Shafiq, you're on a pair.
Feel for
him. At least he was second ball in the first innings, 6 balls in the second innings, so that's an improvement. But because it's not the full swinging one. Like Mitchell Starc swings them into right-handers a lot, but that one pitches on to almost back of a length and hits the very top of the stump, and so it's swung. It's had so much room to swing in that it beats the inside edge by a mile.
It kind of cuts, doesn't it? It's not so much swing as it is.
Well, it
cut as that beautiful
cuts.
action.
It curves in at first and then takes middle stump.
Yeah, I think what you say is there is right. Is it had enough time to do that much work, and sure, there's a gap between bat and pad, but how's there not going to be on that angle? So no one's going to blame Shafiq for that. At the end, it ends a relatively poor tour for him. He did make a half century at Melbourne, but he'll be back, and hopefully he's back in Australia. I guess this is the existential piece, right? Like, we know how difficult it is to think about the future of Test cricket right now without getting down. We have these conversations on almost a daily basis, and I was really encouraged by Todd Greenberg today, the boss of the Cricketers Association, on our coverage, backing in Mike Baird enthusiastically. We spoke about Mike Baird's comments last night. Saw some stuff on Twitter, people going, "Oh, I believe it when I see it, Cricket Australia." I'm like, these are new administrators. You can't kind of get stuck into Mike Baird when he's the new chairman, saying that he wants to implement a redistributive model where Australian players, it boils down to, will make less money in order to help poorer nations. That is a statement which is born of altruism. This is not greed. This is them trying to, on behalf of the game at large, do something right. I'm not saying Cricket Australia have gotten things historically right when it comes to supporting other nations, and their abysmal record at playing nations like Bangladesh and Zimbabwe, which we talk about all the time, is absolutely part of that. But now we've reached this point, all you can ask is them to make the right decision on behalf of the global game, and that's what they're trying to do. And Todd Greenberg today from the Players Association effectively said, yes, we want to be part of that mission where the players themselves will, I don't know what format it'll be, but they will try and help make this right on a week where South Africa have been humiliated on the field, and they've had that devastating thing happen off the field with their squad for New Zealand. And in all of that context, you think, oh, Pakistan knocking off Australia. How big would that be? What a perfect time for that kind of moment in Test cricket. And quarter of an hour later, it feels like the collapse is on. We've already discussed briefly what Sain was able to do, the audacity of youth and all the rest of it, and hitting that 6 over mid-wicket and over deep point, rather. And you kind of get the sense that something special might be on again. And then, the deflating triple wicket maiden. Brilliant from Hazlewood, but it doesn't make it any less deflating that this was a Test match that had the potential to be a memorable, iconic one. Now the probability of that is through the floor.
In terms of wanting the contest, but I think generally Australian observers are pretty upbeat. Like, they've enjoyed the fact that this Pakistan team have given some fight. I think that'll help them in terms of getting their next tour and being back again and hopefully playing 3 tests instead of 2.
Desperately
I think it's entirely reasonable to be very cynical about administrators, but this is the first time that we've heard comments like this from people in that position. From the chair and the CEO
on the same day
of Cricket Australia on the same day, to be specific about this is what needs to happen. There does need to be some redistribution of finances. The fact that they've said that means that there's something to hold them to. So they may not follow through with it, but they've at least...
And we'll be the first ones to smash them up if it turns out in 2 years' time that it goes down the gurgler and nothing actually happens. But absolute gibber I was copying in last night on social media from people who really should know better.
But the way that it works, so they lose the first 2, and then Saim Ayub and Babar Azam, they're batting pretty nicely. That cut shot, it reminded me of Shubman Gill when he took on Mitchell Starc and carved him away for 6 over, but that was more over deep third. This was squarer. This was almost the AB de Villiers cut shot for 6 from Soam Ayub when he nailed Starc. And it wasn't just that, it was the fact the very first ball that Cummins bowls, rocks back and pumps that over mid-on. Wasn't quite there to pull, but he went through with it anyway. And he wasn't indiscriminate. He wasn't throwing the bat at everything. He was leaving a lot of balls, he was defending a lot of balls, and then he was taking on some deliveries. And yeah, that's a lot of excitement about someone who ends up making 30. But
there's something there though, isn't there?
There was something there.
Because he's a white ball, he's not just a white ball guy. He averaged 79 in the Pakistani first class competition last year. He's made a double century against an all-international attack as recently as a few months ago. So he's 21, he's got this white ball future ahead of him, but I don't think it's for nothing that he's left a bit of a mark on this series, and he'll leave wanting more. In the same way that Warner was being pigeonholed a dozen years ago as well. He's a white ball basher, and before you know it, he goes down as one of the better Australian openers. He might be in the top 4 or 5, I don't know what it'll come down to, openers Australia have ever produced, and no one ever saw that coming. Maybe it'll be the same for Soam Ayub when we look back at his career in a dozen years' time.
What I think is really significant is second ball duck in the first innings, drops 2 important catches, and still was able to come back and play an innings rather than letting all of that get on top of him. I thought that was significant in terms of mental resilience, and Barbara does a bit. And then, I mean, Lyon, the ball to South Shaquille, who's been trailing away, still never made a duck, mind you, but it crawled along the pitch. That one kept so low from a reasonable length from Lyon, and that's almost the disappointment, is that I'm thinking, well, Pakistan here, if they even set 200, if they set Australia 200, that would be challenging, because this pitch is starting to keep lower and lower. There were a lot of balls that had inconsistent bounce today, and most of them were outside the line of the stumps. That one from Lyon is on the line of the stumps. So look, they're probably going to get smashed up tomorrow. They've got 3 wickets in hand. They've got Rizwan and Jamal. That's their last chance saloon, is that the 2 who put on a big partnership in the first innings both made important runs, both made scores in the 80s in the first innings. If those 2 could do something, if they could pull out another 50 each, if they could eke out another 110, 120 runs, then there's a possibility they can give themselves something to bowl at here.
Yeah, this is genuine last chance cafe, isn't it? Like, it's going to be these 2. It has to be this wicket, these 2, and they have to add about 100. I mean, maybe not as many as that, but in all probability, as many as 100 to give themselves a chance of having something to bowl at. And if they can't, if they are dismissed for any less than that together, it's more likely, even if it is one of them left with the tail, balance of probability, Hamza's not doing that again.
Big last wicket partnerships don't tend to happen twice. Nottingham 2013 is the only one I can think of where it happened twice, with Pattinson and Haddon, and with Phil Hughes and Ashton Agar. So, yeah, very unlikely. You know, the probability is Australia take a wicket some point early in the morning and run down the runs. But, as they say, as Jim Carrey told us, there's still a chance. You're saying there's a chance. We dare to dream as we move to the final word Hall of Fame. Final word Hall of Fame, Jeff. Brought to you. Do you know who it was brought to you by? I think it's by CBUS Super. Very good. It's 4 letters, CBUS, and then it's one word. It's super. The innovations of the fund's insurance stand today. Do they? Instead of passing the hat around to help a mate, the insurance scheme provided a fair alternative covering workers in hazardous jobs, and still does to this day. This is an emblem of the way that CBUS has a wider perspective. We talk about their superannuation returns all the time, 8.99% on average across the now 40 years they've been in operation. But they are looking after the people that are part of their fund, who work in the industries where the majority of their members come from. This is the union starting point with the employer groups. That's what Industry Super is all about. 50-50 representation on their board, independent directors as well. Like, this is the whole idea of the thing, right? Is everyone working in the interest of those who are members of the superannuation fund. Nearly 900,000 members across the country. And this is why we're celebrating CBUS's 40th birthday in 2024. cbussuper.com.au. I mentioned before the 8.99%, very impressive. It's not a reliable indicator of future performance, past performance, but, you know, that's a number that's worth noting. That's a good number. Hall of Fame today, I think we've got to start with the testicular catch in the gully. South Shaquille did something right there, the one that was flashed away by Lyon, taken low down, hit the heels of the hand, and then bounced up right into the box area. But you're not wearing a box at gully, so I don't know how uncomfortable the catch was. But he managed to hold it, sort of fell over sideways, clamped his legs together, got one hand in there to kind of keep the ball in place, the cricket ball that is, and then plucked it out as he rolled over. didn't touch the ground. That was the main thing. And it doesn't matter what part of your body you catch it with, you just need to keep it off the turf.
Reminiscent of what Roger Harper tried to do at this ground on the 1st of January 1996 when Michael Bevan was at the very start of his innings. Do you like that? Michael Bevan?
Yeah,
Michael Bevan. I looked through some Michael Bevan numbers last night at a Morehouse, fantastic statistician from Canberra. He's scored more competitive runs at the SCG than anyone by a mile, at like 80.
More than
crazy.
Bradman.
More than Bradman. And we've got him on the Final Word Live at Sydney in just 2 nights from tonight.
Yep.
The 7th of January, Comedy Store, ticket link in the show notes. If you're on the fence, you're not quite sure either way, come and hear Michael Bevan talk about strumming tons for fun here at the Sydney Cricket Ground.
Yep.
A rare opportunity. He doesn't do many of these types of things, but he will be there talking to Jeff and me, the Comedy Store. Be there.
Babar Azam, he had a great day today in the field. He was having a lot of fun. He seems to be enjoying not being captain.
Yeah.
He was running around the place. He was skipping up and down the pitch. He was getting into all sorts of Comedy Store material. The best bit being when Mitchell Marsh had a sweep shot against Salman, against the spinner, which bobbled up and just clipped the bottom of his grill. And they did the sort of pantomime at that point of, is your helmet okay? But before that happened, Babar runs up to him from slip and goes, how many fingers am I holding up? Puts up 2 fingers. Puts up 3 fingers. How many's that? 2. And Mitchell Marsh just kind of laughed and cuffed him around the back of the head. It was very good natured. It's nice to see teams getting along, but also it's nice to see someone who's had a pretty hard go of it. It's hard being the captain of Pakistan. You cop a lot of shit. You've got politics all over the place. He got squeezed out of the job after the World Cup debacle, but he seems to be enjoying himself out there.
I was going to say the same person, but for different things. I didn't see the 2 fingers up. What I did see, though, was at one stage he brought the whole cordon together after a play and miss. So it would have been Rizwan, Salman, himself, and Shaquille. And he got all 4 of them in a huddle with their heads together like this. I mean, I don't know what was going on there, but it was through Babar's initiation. And at the end of the over after that, he grabbed the hands of, again, I think it was Salman it might have been Salman and Shaquille again, and they ran down the other end holding hands, almost skipping along from one end to the other.
Nice.
At one point, they took him at a second slip to short cover, and he sprinted those 30 metres like he was Usain Bolt at the 2008 Olympics. Huge smile on his face. It does feel like, even though the tour has not gone well for Babar Azam, the batter, maybe he's just feeling better as Babar Azam, the human being. And for that, I wish him well into the future. We've already touched on the sight screen drama. It wasn't the only bit with Steve Smith and that today. There were other side screen issues, but sight screen issues, I suppose that's just par for the course. 655 days between test wickets for our man Sajid Khan.
Oh, yeah.
I thought I'd note that. It's been a long time to wait to get that ball to Carey. He would have dreamt of his next test wicket. He might have thought it was never going to come, but he got one today. And last but not least, we did a bad job of documenting the David Warner baggy green stuff before the test match. Let's just quickly go through it here. Cock-up conspiracy, typically cock-up. This bag has shown up in the players' area, but it's shrouded in mystery. Okay. No one really knows how it ended up there. Was it an oversight? I'm looking forward to whenever the full story on this comes out, because as it stands right now, there was a lot of information when they were looking for the cap. Not quite so much information now. I'm sure the usual suspects will tell us nothing to see here, but I've also been following David Warner's career long enough, and so have you. There's usually more to see here, and that's why he's such a charming person to follow, because wherever David Warner is, interesting things follow.
There's a long tradition of people hunting for bags in Sydney, so I'm glad to see that that's been continued at the SCG this week.
All right, that'll do on the Final Word Hall of Fame. For CBUS Super, jump in there, cbussuper.com.au. We bloody love them. We love you too for following, watching, listening to our program. Patreon.com/The Final Word if you want to support us financially, with many other people on our Discord channel. If you want to sign up to the Edinburgh Half Marathon or Marathon, by the way, Jeff, do it right away. They're nearly at full capacity. If you're on the fence, please get in touch with me as soon as you can. Get the link out of our show notes. Just do it. Don't hesitate. Get fit. Run 21 kilometres. Jeff, you've got to sign up for the 10K.
Get off the fence. The fence is uncomfortable. It's not a good place to be. Nobody enjoys sitting on a fence. I think that's it.
It's going to be a 4-day test match, right? Yeah. Probably one way or the other. Tomorrow will be it.
We'll be back with you on day 4, because that's what we do. Jeff Lemon, Adam Collins. We'll see you tomorrow.
Good night.